Rather than supporting President Trump, Mitt Romney once again throws the president under the bus. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez pushes for Washington, D.C. statehood with some bizarre facts, and Robert Francis O'Rourke gets an earful over his confiscation plan. All that and more. I'm Bobby Eberle. This is a 13-minute news hour.
And God bless the United States of America.
All right, friends, welcome to the show. I hope you had a great weekend. And before we dive into the news, I just have to thank you, and I have to talk about subscribers. Because on Friday, we just hit 60,000 subscribers. I can't believe it. It was so fast from 50,000 to 60,000. And I just want to thank you for subscribing and also remind everyone who's watching, over 90% of all the views we get are from people who aren't subscribers. So if you could just really quick, just hit the subscribe button. And when you do, hit the bell so you'll be notified. That really helps us. It helps us with YouTube, and it helps us continue to grow and reach more people. So thank you very much for the 60,000, and let's push to 70. All right, we're going to start with this whole Trump-Ukraine story because it's in the news, and I want you guys to be armed with some information so you know what's going on. And in particular, it just really bugs me because Mitt Romney decided to jump into this mix. And this guy frustrates me to no end, probably worse than any member of the GOP. Because when he was running for president, he wanted President Trump's help, Donald Trump's help at the time. But now he just bashes him whenever he can. Whenever he can, he does it. And now he's jumped into this Trump-Ukraine story. So to give you a little bit of background, what happened was, it's a newly elected president, Volodymyr Zelensky. And back in July, President Trump had a conversation with him. And apparently, according to some intelligence community whistleblower, during that conversation, President Trump asked President Zelensky to look into the Bidens, Joe and Hunter Biden, for political purposes. All right, and we're going to get more into the Bidens in just a little bit because that's a big part of this story. But that's what the whistleblower was claiming, that President Trump talked to President Zelensky, wanted him to look into the Bidens for political purposes. So President Trump addressed reporters yesterday, and here's part of what he said.
Conversation I had was largely congratulatory, was largely corruption, all of the corruption taking place, was largely the fact that we don't want our people, like Vice President Biden and his son, creating to the corruption already in the Ukraine.
All right, so let's keep a few things in mind here. First of all, like I said, it's a new president of Ukraine. So President Trump called to congratulate him. Secondly, Ukraine is known for its corruption, and this new president ran on fighting corruption. So it's entirely appropriate to bring up the Bidens, which we'll see in a minute. But here's more from President Trump.
Ukraine has had a tremendous corruption problem. Somehow they were involved in a lot of different things that took place in our country. And hopefully it can be straightened out. And I will say, the new president, we had a very good talk. The new president got elected based on the fact that he would end corruption. That was probably his number one thing.
So this new president wants to fight corruption, and now it's being spun by some deep state whistleblower as inappropriate, that it was a political conversation. And it's just ridiculous on the outset because everyone knows that these conversations are not private. You have security officials in the United States monitoring the conversations. You have security officials in the other country monitoring the conversations. And both of the leaders know this. So nothing inappropriate is going to go on, no political conversations. And President Trump addressed this.
Anytime I'm on the phone with a foreign leader, many people are on the line. Sometimes they're taping calls. Sometimes they're doing a stenographer. But I also assume many people are on the line from the other side. So if I'm speaking to a country, they also have people on the line. So who would say a thing like what you're saying?
All right, that's the conversation. And here's some background on Joe and Hunter Biden, because this involves the Ukraine, fighting corruption, and that has everything to do with the Bidens. Okay, here is the story from the Washington Times. The potential corruption stems from Mr. Biden's actions in March 2016 when he was vice president and visiting Kiev. He threatened to withhold $1 billion in U.S. loan guarantees if the nation's leaders did not fire Ukraine's chief prosecutor. Mr. Biden said the prosecutor was turning a blind eye to corruption in his own office and among the political elite. But the prosecutor also was investigating Ukraine gas company's Burisma Holdings, where Hunter Biden had a high-paying seat on the board. The prosecutor was fired soon after Mr. Biden's visit. All right, so let's sum this up. In 2016, while Joe Biden was vice president, he visited Ukraine and threatened to withhold $1 billion in U.S. loan guarantees unless Ukraine fired their chief prosecutor, a man who was investigating the company that was deeply involved. Hunter Biden, Joe Biden's son, was deeply involved in this company. And Joe Biden said, fire this guy or we're withholding the money. And guess what? They fired the guy. And so now all of a sudden that actually happened. Now all of a sudden President Trump talks to the new president of Ukraine and it's being spun as if Trump's the bad guy. And this is all about political purposes. And what I want to do right now is I want to give some props out to Senator Lindsey Graham, because that story I quoted from, the deeper story there is Senator Graham calling for an investigation into the Bidens and Ukraine and the corruption that went on, and using his political office to influence family members and benefit family members. That needs to be investigated, just like the Democrats were pushing a Russia investigation on Trump. So props to Lindsey Graham for not only sticking up for the president, but also looking to where this actual incident needs to be investigated. On the other hand, we have Mitt Romney, who tweeted this out on Sunday. He said, if the president asked or pressured Ukraine's president to investigate his political rival, either directly or through his personal attorney, it would be troubling in the extreme. Critical for facts to come out. So nothing about Joe Biden, nothing about Hunter Biden, just blasting the president. I mean, it's just outrageous. Joe Biden is, he's falling like a rock anyway. And so, come on, back up President Trump. And yet Romney, every single time he has a chance, this is what he does. And it's pathetic. And I wish he would just go away or keep his mouth shut or be more like Lindsey Graham and investigate the real corruption. What about a tweet about Hunter Biden or Joe Biden? There's nothing on the Twitter feed for Romney about that. Yet he decides, of all of this stuff, I'm going to go after President Trump. It's just nuts. But now I want to talk about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, because she put out a tweet about Washington, D.C. statehood, because that's, the Democrats bring that up all the time. But it was so wrong, and it just shows, once again, she doesn't know what she's talking about. Here's her tweet. Here's what she said. D.C. was the first territory in the United States to free the enslaved. It's where Black Americans fled the tyranny of slavery and towards greater freedom to D.C. Yet today, it's where second-class citizenship reigns and the right to vote is denied. It's time to recognize D.C. statehood. All right, so that's wrong on a lot of levels, okay? First of all, a territory, it's a district constructed by our government. It's not a territory. Second, since about 1804, all the northern states had outlawed slavery. There was plenty of places that freed the slaves before Washington, D.C. And the other thing is this whole idea that they're second-class citizens, they don't have a right to vote. They have a government in Washington, D.C. They have a mayor. They have city council. People vote on that. As far as president, Washington, D.C. gets 3 electoral votes. They vote for president of the United States just like anyone else in this country. The thing is that we all have to see through is that the reason they want to push for D.C. statehood is because it would be another Democrat state, 2 more senators, another representative in the House to vote for the Democrats. Washington, D.C. is 76% registered Democrats, only 6% registered Republicans. That's why they want to push it. It's not for rights. It's not for anything like that. It's for power, plain and simple. So when called on some of these facts, Ocasio-Cortez actually put out this tweet. She wrote, "The right is pushing back on this. To clarify, in 280 characters, D.C. was the first area where enslaved people were freed by the U.S. government. It was enacted by the Compensated Emancipation Act of 1862. All right, so again, she has to issue a correction because she doesn't have her facts straight, yet it's the right that's coming after her. How about anyone who actually knows what's going on? So next, I want to talk about Robert Francis O'Rourke because, as you know, he was going off and, people responded to our show last week really well when he was talking about coming to take our firearms from law-abiding citizens. Well, he was speaking in Colorado, and one woman, Lauren Boebert, she wasn't having any of it. Check out this report.
I am here to say, hell no, you're not. I have 4 children. I'm 5'0", 100 pounds. Cannot really defend myself with a fist. I want to know how you're going to legislate that, because a criminal, by defense, breaks the law. So all you're going to do is restrict law-abiding citizens like myself.
So that is just awesome. Okay, I love it when regular citizens speak out to the political elite and tell them what's going on in the real world. Here's what's going on. So when she was on Fox News, she also spoke out about the shooting that happened prior in Aurora, Colorado, and here's what she said.
Honestly, those victims were defenseless. There were criminals that did those horrible acts, and by definition, those criminals do not obey the laws. So there is no legislation that you can pass that is going to stop the evil in a man's heart. If he has a desire to go out and harm someone, he will find a way to do that.
Great stuff there. It's so common sense, and it goes to the whole idea of the left. It's really quite simple. The left wants the defenders to be defenseless. All right, they want the aggressors to have the guns. They're going to get the weapons, regardless of what it is, to commit crimes, to do bad things. They are going to do it. And yet, again, the left wants defenders, all of us, to be defenseless, because that way, the only one who has power, the only entity that has power, is the government. We need to defend ourselves. We don't need to rely on government. There's no police officer or any other kind of law enforcement official that's going to get to your house if there's a bad guy about to shoot you in time. It's up to us to defend ourselves, not only from home invaders, but from a left run amok that wants to take our power, our choices, our rights. And, this Lauren Boebert spoke up, and she was our voice that so many people want to speak up on. It was just awesome. So next, I want to end with some polling information, because as we've seen, Joe Biden's been slipping in the polls, and with this Ukraine stuff, it's probably going to go even lower. But who's rising? That's Elizabeth Warren. Check out this report from the Washington Examiner. It says Elizabeth Warren surpassed Joe Biden for the first time in a Des Moines Register CNN Mediacom poll released Saturday, earning 22% support among likely Iowa Democrat caucus goers to Biden's 20%. Often called the gold standard of Iowa polling, the poll found Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders in third place with 11% support, South Bend, Indiana Mayor Pete Buttigieg at 9%, while California Senator Kamala Harris was in fifth with 6%. Senators Amy Klobuchar and Cory Booker each had 3%, and the rest were lower. So you see what's happening here. Elizabeth Warren continues to just build her momentum. Joe Biden slips. Bernie Sanders seems unstable, and he's a socialist. So his time has passed. His run has passed. Elizabeth Warren, who is as far left as all of them, she has the energy, more energy than Biden and Sanders, and she is the one that's making gains, and she is the one I think that's going to emerge as the nominee. So right there is shows kind of the changing of the guard. We'll see if it lasts. Anything can happen in politics, but so far, that's the latest trend. So folks, that's our show for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Tune in Wednesday, and until then, please subscribe and please hit that bell so you'll be notified. And we'll see you next time. I'm Bobby Eberly. This is the 13-Minute News Hour. Okay, friends, just a little reminder before you go, and no, this does not count against my 13 minutes. Please hit the subscribe button below and tell your friends. And if you happen to miss our last show, you can check it out right here. And also for great conservative news and commentary, please check out GOPUSA.com. All right, folks, we'll see you on the next show. Have a great day.